You're listening to Arin It Out, a podcast that inspires everyday people to lead with purpose in their careers, communities, and callings. I'm Arin Patterson, TEDx speaker, leadership strategist, and culture architect. I'm passionate about helping people discover their strengths, develop their skills, and do meaningful and fulfilling work. Through honest conversations and real reflections, we'll explore what it truly takes to lead well, not just in the work that you do, but in who you become. Because it's not about the title you wear, it's about the stretch, the setbacks, and the silent wins along the way. Are you ready to grow, lead, and leave your mark? If so, let's begin. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Arin It Out, the podcast where we talk leadership, lessons, and life. I'm your host, Arin Patterson, and I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode 4 of season 2, is entitled, Where Did My Motivation Go? And this episode, we're not really talking about how to get motivated. Instead, I want to talk about some of the things that slowly erode our motivation in the first place. If you know what you want, and you believe that you're capable of getting there, but you found yourself in this place of struggling to do some of the things that you know you need to do, and maybe sometimes the things even that you want to do, this episode is for you. Now, before we look at today's conversation, I want to say something about my podcast. You know, I've been thinking a lot lately, and I mentioned this on the last episode that I posted, but I've been thinking a lot about specifically what I want my voice to sound like. And I'm not referring to the voice that you hear right now on the podcast. I'm referring to my leadership voice, my podcasting voice, my content creation voice, if you will. And I know that I want to be known as someone who is optimistic. I know I want to be known as someone who is hopeful. I want to be known as someone that is real. But even when necessary, I want to be known as someone who is raw, who talks about what needs to be talked about. I do not hold back. I say what needs to be said with passion and with clarity. And so today, I believe you're going to get a full scope of my voice through this conversation. And the angle that I'm taking today is not as someone who has fully understood or understands motivation. I'm not coming from this angle of here's what you need to do to get motivated. No, I'm coming from this angle as someone who I found myself in this place of, I know there's things I need to do. I know there's things even that I want to do, but I have been struggling with motivation for a couple of different reasons. And we're going to talk about those things today. I think all of us go through moments where we experience disappointments, we experience exhaustion, or we're bored of a situation, or there's some goal that just feels out of reach. And I want to talk about those things that can slowly erode your motivation. And I want to be very clear that today is not simply a career conversation. I know some of the podcasts that I have are very geared towards career, very geared towards leadership. Today is going to be a combination of your career along with your real everyday life. And why is that? Because when it comes to motivation, the things that impact your motivation cannot be defined to what's happening from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. When it comes to your motivation, there's going to be things that you recognize are impacting your motivation that happen on Sunday, happen on Saturday, happen in the evening. And I want us to talk about those things. And this is something that I've noticed in my own life. You know, there's emails that I need to respond to. There's text messages that people have sent me. There are things that I genuinely want to do. And sometimes it's not that I don't get to these things or get to these messages or get to whatever it is, whatever the objective is, because I'm so busy. I'm simply not just that busy. Sometimes I just don't have the capacity for it. Sometimes I just don't have the motivation for it. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, because sometimes we can be incredibly hard on ourselves about things that look simple from the outside, like an email, like a text message, like just writing a page for a book, for a blog, whatever it is, like just going to the gym or just applying for a job. But it's not always just that simple. Sometimes we need to really consider what is causing us to be unmotivated, or as I'd like to say, eroding away at our motivation. As I sat and thought about this, five possibilities of reasons that we struggle with motivation or things that erode our motivation came to mind. So I want to share those with you. And again, today I'm not trying to give you an answer or a solution to a problem. I'm simply trying to get you to reflect on what are some of the things that come up for you when it comes to motivation. What are some of the things that are causing you to not be motivated to go after your dreams, to go after your goals, or whatever it may be. So today I'm pulling from things in my own personal life and I'm sharing these with you. And the first thing is this. The first thing that can erode your motivation is not having enough wins. Not having enough wins. You know, sometimes you're unmotivated because you haven't seen yourself winning in the area that you're working so hard in. You haven't had enough evidence to prove that this is something that's worth fighting for, worth working towards. It is so much easier to keep moving towards a goal or towards an objective when you can see progress. So if you start to work out and you're working out consistently and you begin to notice that your clothes fit differently or you begin to see the scale move, it helps you to be more motivated to keep working towards whatever your end goal is. If you're considering paying off some debt and you're throwing money at it as you see the account balances go down and what you owe is less and less and less, that can keep you motivated to keep paying off your debt, off your student loans, whatever it is. If you're applying for job after job after job and you never hear back, it's really going to be tough to stay motivated. But the moment that you get a call for an interview, the moment that you get someone you know is looking at your resume and reaches out to you, it helps you to stay motivated. It helps you to keep going. But what happens in your life when you don't experience wins like that? When you're not seeing the fruit of the work that you're putting forth? I'll give you a very real example from my own life. How about dating? You can go on date after date after date, meet person after person after person, put yourself out there, let people know that you're interested, meet new people, try to remain hopeful, try to remain optimistic, and eventually it gets to this point where you feel like because you're not experiencing the win that you should be, and in the case of dating, it's a relationship. Sometimes it just makes you kind of throw your hands up and you're like, I don't even want to do what it takes to get to that anymore because I'm not seeing it produce what I want it to. I don't feel like I'm winning in this area. And that can cause you to ask yourself, why am I even doing this? Why do I keep doing this? And it doesn't mean that you don't want that thing anymore, but sometimes it's just like, I'm just not seeing the success from my efforts. And so let me lessen my efforts. Let me reduce my efforts. There's a concept in psychology known as self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is simply this belief in my ability to execute the behaviors necessary to produce an outcome. To put it simply, your wins matter. The more that you recognize the actions that you're taking will produce the results that you want. But when you're doing those actions and they're not producing the results that you want, it can erode away at your motivation. And I dare say at your confidence as well. Think about this. Where have you been putting in effort without experiencing enough wins to reinforce that effort? Or when was the last time you felt like you were winning in life, in your relationships, at work? If you struggle to answer that question, that may be part of the reason you're experiencing motivation struggles in this area. Here's the second thing that can erode your motivation. It's simply boredom. I think we often talk about being burned out, we talk about being overwhelmed, but sometimes you are just bored. And I can admit that there are areas of my own life right now that I'm experiencing this. Um, some things in life don't feel particularly exciting, if you will. There's some parts of my job that aren't exciting. And when nothing feels new or challenging or stimulating, it can be difficult to generate motivation. Imagine you have the same commute to work every single day. You sit in the same meetings or the same types of meetings. You have the same task that you do day after day after day. You're having the same conversations year after year after year, the same routine. It's the same thing again and again and again. And I don't know about you, but I am someone who requires variety. I cannot do the same thing over and over and over again, which is why I find it so hard to understand how some people have gone to the same workplace for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. My brain literally cannot understand that because I am someone who needs change. I require change. And so there's times I find that I'm just simply bored of what I've been doing. I'm not being challenged anymore. I'm not feeling like there's anything fresh anymore. It's like I already know what's going to come up. I know what this person's going to say. I know that this person's going to turn to the right and do a little dance, and nothing feels new. And sometimes that can erode away at your motivation. And the more I think about this and consider this, there's a bit of when you become bored, and I am speaking for myself right now, when I become bored, it's because I've mastered a thing. And I don't mean mastered in terms of I've perfected it. I mean mastered as in this is something I've seen so many times. I know how to do it. It doesn't require that much from me. You know, when you start a brand new job and everything is brand new, there's a level of you really have to lock in and focus to understand what's happening, what's going on. And then you get to a point where you just get comfortable because you found this comfortable place of I'm in a flow, I know what to do, I'm not too stressed about the things. And you know, sometimes we find ourselves in those places, and not just at work. Sometimes that's in our relationships. Sometimes that's in whatever else is important to you. But you have to recognize if you're lacking motivation because of boredom, because you need something fresh, because you need something new. And when it all boils down for me, I can say that when I find myself in a place of boredom, it does indicate one good thing, that I've grown. It shows that I have grown, that I have got to a place where this was all brand new at one point. This was all novel. It was fresh. And now at this place down the road, whether it's a couple of months, a couple of years, a couple of decades, that I have grown. So boredom is evidence of growth. And to all my friends, followers, and listeners, let me be very clear. Just because you find yourself bored with something does not mean that you quit the thing. If you are bored at work, it does not mean you quit your job and leave. If you are bored in your relationship, that does not mean you get up and walk away. That's not how this works. It's just not. But I want you to ask yourself, am I unmotivated or am I understimulated? And when was the last time this part of my life required something new from me? And the third thing that can erode your motivation is being mentally and physically depleted. Being mentally and physically depleted. Now, I don't know about you, but being tired is one thing. Being physically tired is one thing. But mental tiredness or mental exhaustion is a whole nother something. And as I was planning this, I just kept thinking that it's so critical that we not treat someone, whether it's others or ourselves, who's struggling with motivation as if that is a character flaw. You know, we've gone through a couple of the different reasons why someone's motivation can be eroded, but that doesn't equate to them having bad character. Just because you're really struggling to get a task done at work, and it's a motivation thing, that doesn't mean that you are bad or doing something intentionally wrong. And there's probably a lot more I could flesh out about that, but I don't necessarily want to do on this episode. But it's very important to recognize that the energy that it takes to do anything in life, from getting up out of the bed to brushing your teeth to going to work to taking care of your responsibilities at work, family, children, all the things, some of us just don't have the energy or the capacity to do so because we are physically tired and we are mentally tired. We are depleted. And that's one reason that your motivation may be suffering. You know, for me, mental fatigue looks like I've made decisions all day. I've been talking to employees all day. I've been leading and answering questions all day. I've been in work mindset all day long. And work mindset is sometimes just having on my work face, being pleasant enough as I walk through the hallways, making sure that I smile, things that I typically do, but sometimes sometimes does require effort. It looks like thinking about my future and planning out what does my job search look like. And I still need to record that podcast and all of these things going through your mind day after day. And you don't always have the capacity to deal with each of them effectively. And then once I've done all of my responsibilities for the day, then I come home and I'm like, okay, I've got to write. I have this book I want to publish and I need to write. And you sit down to write and nothing comes out. And it's not because the dream isn't there. It's just not because it's not something that you don't deem as important. But the tiredness, the mental and the physical tiredness has taken away some of that motivation. Then there's also the physical fatigue. And so you may know in your mind, like, gosh, I gotta go to the gym. I need to go do this workout, or I need to go for a walk. I need to do something physical. I need to clean the house. I need to do whatever it is. And you find yourself in this place of, I cannot do anything else. I need to rest. I need to rejuvenate. And it's not that you don't care, and it's not that you are lazy, but your body does require rest. And if you find yourself in this place lacking motivation, lacking excitement about the things that you say you want to do, it could be because you're depleted. You don't have the mental or physical energy to do what you need to do. So before you criticize yourself or you become overly critical of where you are and what you are doing, I want you to ask yourself, do I lack motivation or do I lack capacity? Am I mentally depleted? Am I physically depleted? Or am I depleted in both areas? And the fourth way that your motivation may be eroded is because of discouragement. Because you can think about a dream that you still desire, you still want, and simply just be tired of fighting for it. You know, that's different from not believing, and it's not like you're giving up on it. You just don't know how many more times you have in you to get knocked down and get back up and try again. It's like there's another rejection, another disappointment, another closed door, another date that goes nowhere, another application that gets unseen, another attempt at your dreams, another you thinking to yourself, maybe next time. And at some point, believing itself starts to feel exhausting. And that's when you find yourself in this place of discouragement. I want to reemphasize that today's episode is not about finding solutions. Today is more of simply an acknowledgement, or it's diagnostic, if you will. It's just recognizing I'm lacking motivation. What are the reasons I'm lacking motivation? And when it comes to this area of discouragement, I believe that sometimes when we find ourselves in a place of discouragement, we're teaching ourselves, well, maybe I don't need to go after this. I don't want to be disappointed again. I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to, do something that's going to hurt myself. And we think we're protecting ourselves. But a lot of time discouragement creeps in and tells us to not do this thing that we absolutely should be doing. And, for me, if I relate this back to the dating context, I know I have to date. I know I have to meet people. But sometimes when you get discouraged, you're just like, I won't do this. It's okay. And we try to find solace and peace in that. But truly, the satisfaction comes from doing the thing. The satisfaction comes from running after a goal, chasing after something that you really want in this life. So part of the question as you consider discouragement is, do I not want this anymore? Or am I simply tired of wanting something that has been difficult to obtain? And here's the fifth thing that erodes away at our motivation. It's recognizing that the goal feels too far away. Sometimes your motivation can be eroded simply because you're struggling to see the finish line. You can't see yourself getting there anytime soon. It seems so far off in the distance that you find yourself in this place of, man, I'm not motivated to get this thing because I'm struggling to see the end. I'm struggling to see the happily ever after. I'm struggling to see my career in the place that I've dreamt of it being. For me, I want to be a best-selling author, but that means getting myself in a place to sit down again and write hundreds of pages for my next book. It's going to be fire. I'm telling you that right now, but it's getting myself into a place to actually write the pages to get to the finish line of being a best-selling author. I can see it, I can imagine it, but I recognize how much work it is going to take and how, and in some ways, how far away it simply seems that, there's the question of, is my platform big enough yet? Are enough people going to be aware of my book and the work? And if there's not enough people aware of it, how do I get enough people to be aware of it? And all of these things that I know I have the ability to do, but also it just makes me ask the question, when I think about becoming debt-free and paying off all of my student loans, the number at this point is seemingly not that big of a number, but in some ways it just feels so far away. It feels like, how many more years do I need to pay to get this paid off? And I can tell you this, I'm excited about the day that I become debt-free. I'm excited about the day that I'm a best-selling author. I'm excited about the day that I am married to the love of my life. But in some ways, some of these things feel so far out of reach. And speaking of things that feel out of reach, I think on the last episode, I mentioned that I had something I wanted to share with you all. And I don't think I shared because at the time, I believe I still needed to tell a close friend. And basically, the good news is I was accepted into UNC Chapel Hill's online doctoral program for organizational learning and leadership. Yay. However, I decided to defer for a year because after just finishing my master's, it just doesn't feel like the appropriate time to jump right back into it. And so I'm taking the next year to really consider, is this something that I'm going to put my all into and really go after? And this kind of falls into that category of things that seem so far away. Another 3 years of school, my goodness. And it's not that I can't do it. But sometimes you've really got to count the costs and say, is this something worth doing? But again, it feels out of reach. It feels like the day that someone calls me Dr. Patterson or Dr. Arin or Dr. AP, whatever it is. I'm not sure yet what the vibe is. It just feels so far away. So ask yourself, is the problem that I don't want whatever your goal is? Or does the goal simply feel too far away? As I consider these 5 different areas, I know for myself that I have experienced all of these things. There are areas in my life where I have not experienced enough wins. There are areas in my life where I am bored. There are places in my life where I have been and am mentally and physically depleted. There are dreams that I am still believing for, but tired of fighting for. And there are goals that I absolutely want to accomplish, but they feel so far away. And today's conversation, again, was not about us finding a solution, but more so acknowledging the things that are eroding our motivation. Today, I want you to ask yourself, what's eroding my motivation? Is it that you haven't had enough wins? Is it boredom? Is it mental or physical depletion? Is it discouragement? Or does the goal simply feel too far away? I'm not expecting you to fix it today. I simply want you to name it. I want you to acknowledge it. For those of you all that journal, I want you to write about it. Pay attention in your own life where you see yourself lacking motivation. Because before you decide that you need more motivation, it might be worth understanding what happened to the motivation you already had. If today's episode resonated with you, here's how you can help keep the conversation going. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you follow the show and leave a rating or review. It helps more people find these conversations. Share this episode with a friend or a colleague who might be struggling with motivation. And finally, connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email at hello@erinpatterson.com. I love to hear about a career or leadership success or even a challenge that you're currently working through. Next time on Arin It Out, we're going to keep chatting. I haven't yet nailed down exactly what I want us to talk about. If we're going to keep talking about motivation or if we're going to move more into the interview/resume kind of conversations. But we will be back sooner than later. I can promise you that. I want to thank you for listening to Arin It Out today. I can't wait to see you next time. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.